The last time we saw Rick Grimes, he was being flown away in a CRM helicopter, gravely wounded but alive. His family and friends thought he was dead, blown up on that bridge to save them all. But Rick's story isn't over. It never truly ends. From waking up in an abandoned hospital to becoming the leader who united communities, Rick Grimes' story is perhaps the most harrowing transformation ever depicted on television. A good man forced to do terrible things. A sheriff's deputy who became something far more complex. What makes Rick's story so compelling isn't just what he survived. It's what surviving cost him. His humanity, his sanity, almost everything he ever loved. I'm going to take you through the complete journey of Rick Grimes. Every triumph, every loss, and every impossible choice. I'm about to show you how a small-town sheriff's deputy became the man who would sacrifice everything to build a better world. The Walking Dead viewers who truly get character development are already part of our channel. Hit that subscribe button to join that company. Let's dissect Rick Grimes together. Part 1. Waking up in hell. Rick's story begins in 2010 with a roadside shootout. As a sheriff's deputy in King County, Georgia, he was shot in the line of duty alongside his partner and best friend, Shane Walsh. While Rick lay comatose in the hospital, the world collapsed around him. I find it interesting how the timeline breaks down. Rick was unconscious for exactly 59 days of the apocalypse. During that time, the military executed hospital patients, society crumbled completely, and Shane, believing Rick would die, left him barricaded in his hospital room while he escaped with Rick's wife Lori and son Carl. When Rick finally wakes up on day 59, he's completely alone. The hospital is abandoned, corpses litter the halls, and chained doors hold back the dead. His confusion is profound as he stumbles through empty corridors in his hospital gown, completely unaware of what's happened to the world. Outside the hospital, Rick encounters his first walker, a decayed woman torn in half, yet still crawling and hungry. It's this moment that sets the stage for Rick's character journey. Even faced with undeniable horror, his first instinct isn't self-preservation. It's to find his family. After returning home and finding it empty, Rick meets Morgan Jones and his son Dwayne, who explain the new rules of this world. The dead rise, they feed on the living, and you must destroy the brain to kill them permanently. Morgan becomes Rick's first guide to the apocalypse, teaching him both survival skills and warning him about the dangers of holding on to the past. Armed with weapons from the police station, Rick heads to Atlanta, believing Lori and Carl might have sought refuge there. Instead, he rides his horse into a city overrun with thousands of walkers. Only the intervention of Glenn Rhee saves him from becoming walker food. Glenn leads Rick to a department store where other survivors are trapped, including T-Dog, Andrea, Jackie, and the volatile Merle Dixon. When Merle becomes violent and racist toward T-Dog, Rick handcuffs him to a roof pipe. This decision, though morally justified, will have far-reaching consequences, particularly with Merle's brother Daryl. After a daring escape covered in walker guts as camouflage, the group reaches a quarry camp outside the city where, against all odds, Rick finds Lori and Carl alive. But there's a complication. Shane has been leading the camp and sleeping with Lori, who believed her husband was dead. Their reunion creates the first major conflict that will define Rick's character development. Shane's resentment, Lori's guilt, and Rick's growing awareness of the ruthlessness needed to survive in this world all collide, setting the stage for the transformation to come. Part 2. The cost of leadership. Rick doesn't choose leadership, it's thrust upon him because he makes decisions others can't. Within days of arriving at the camp, he's leading missions back to Atlanta, organizing defense and becoming the group's moral compass. His background as a sheriff's deputy makes him uniquely suited for crisis management, but it also saddles him with a responsibility he never asked for. And this tension between the man who wants to protect his family and the leader everyone relies on becomes the central conflict of Rick's character. After a walker attack on the camp kills several survivors, including Andrea's sister Amy, Rick convinces the group to seek shelter at the CDC. There, scientist Edwin Jenner reveals two crucial pieces of information. No cure exists, and everyone is already infected. No matter how you die, you reanimate unless your brain is destroyed. The revelation becomes a burden that isolates him further. When the CDC self-destructs, the group wanders until Carl is accidentally shot by a hunter named Otis. They find refuge at Herschel Green's farm while Carl recovers, but new tensions emerge. Shane believes Rick isn't ruthless enough to protect the group. His jealousy intensifies when he learns Lori is pregnant, possibly with his child. The farm becomes the site of Rick's first major transformation. When the group captures Randall, a member of another potentially dangerous group, they debate whether to execute him. Shane advocates for immediate execution, while Rick hesitates, still clinging to pre-apocalypse morality. The conflict culminates in one of the most pivotal moments of Rick's journey. Shane lures Rick away from the farm, intending to kill him and take his place as leader and father figure. Rick, finally understanding Shane's betrayal, kills his lifelong friend, only to watch him reanimate moments later, proving Jenner's claim about universal infection. When Carl appears and shoots the zombified Shane, the gunshot draws a massive herd that overruns the farm. As the scattered survivors regroup on the highway, Rick finally reveals Jenner's secret and makes a dramatic declaration: this isn't a democracy anymore. The transformation from reluctant leader to hardened commander has begun. Part 3: The Prison and the Governor. For 8 months after the farm's fall, Rick leads the group as a virtual dictator. They move constantly, scavenging houses and sleeping wherever they can find shelter. Lori's advancing pregnancy brings with it additional pressure, and their marriage has deteriorated completely. Rick can barely look at her, much less offer comfort. When they discover an abandoned prison, Rick sees strategic opportunity: concrete walls, fences, and guard towers to form a defendable position with supplies and shelter. Clearing the prison shows Rick's evolution. He's now tactical, efficient, and willing to take calculated risks. Upon finding surviving prisoners, Rick immediately assesses them as potential threats. When one named Thomas attempts to kill him during a walker clearing operation, Rick doesn't hesitate. He drives a machete into Thomas's skull. The Rick who struggled with executing Randall is gone, replaced by a man who eliminates threats without hesitation. Then comes the event that breaks Rick completely: Lori's death during childbirth. When a vengeful prisoner named Andrew triggers a walker breach, chaos ensues. T-Dog sacrifices himself to save Carol. Lori goes into labor amid the crisis, knowing something's wrong with the birth. She demands Maggie perform an emergency C-section even though it will kill her. After Judith is born, Carl is forced to shoot his mother to prevent reanimation. Rick's reaction to Lori's death is one of the most psychologically authentic portrayals of grief I've seen on television. He doesn't just mourn, he shatters. He hallucinates phone calls from dead friends. He sees Lori's ghost. He abandons his newborn daughter and his traumatized son to wander the prison grounds, slaughtering walkers in a grief-stricken rage. For weeks, he's functionally insane. While Rick struggles with his mental state, a new threat emerges: Woodbury, a nearby community led by a man called the Governor. Unlike the obvious dangers of walkers or marauders, the Governor represents something more insidious: the corruption of power and the facade of normalcy hiding monstrous actions. The conflict escalates when Michonne, a katana-wielding survivor who joins Rick's group, kills the Governor's zombified daughter and takes his eye. In retaliation, the Governor captures Daryl and forces him to fight his brother Merle, who had joined Woodbury after escaping the Atlanta roof, in a gladiatorial arena. Rick leads a rescue mission that saves them both, but the Governor's thirst for revenge grows. He launches an all-out assault on the prison, though his attack fails when his own soldiers retreat. In a moment that perfectly illustrates his psychopathy, the Governor massacres his own people for their failure. Months pass as the prison community grows. They take in the remaining Woodbury citizens after the Governor disappears. They plant crops, raise livestock, and form a governing council. Rick steps back from leadership as he tries to build something resembling normalcy for his children. The brief period of peace allows Rick to reconnect with his humanity and his role as a father, rather than just a leader. But the Governor returns with a new army and a tank. He apprehends Herschel and Michonne and demands Rick surrender the prison. When Rick offers to share the prison instead, showing his growth toward cooperation, the Governor decapitates Herschel, triggering all-out war. In the ensuing battle, the prison falls. The Governor is killed by Michonne, but the survivors are scattered. Rick, severely beaten and barely able to walk, escapes with Carl, believing baby Judith is dead. Herschel's death hit me harder than almost any Walking Dead moment. If this breakdown's giving you the same emotional roller coaster as the show, tap subscribe. Part 4: The Road to Alexandria. The destruction of the prison breaks Rick in a different way than Lori's death. This time, he doesn't lose his mind. He loses his humanity. On the road with Carl, he becomes almost feral. When they're attacked by a group called the Claimers who threaten Carl, Rick rips out their leader's throat with his teeth. It's primitive, animal savagery born of pure protective instinct. After reuniting with Michonne and Daryl, Rick's group follows signs promising sanctuary at a place called Terminus. But this supposed safe haven is actually a trap run by cannibals who lure survivors in to become their next meal. I've studied apocalyptic narratives for years, and what makes Terminus so effective as a story point is how it represents the complete corruption of civilization. They literally consume other humans to survive. It's the antithesis of the community Rick ultimately tries to build. With Carol's help, the same Carol that Rick had exiled for killing sick people at the prison, they destroy Terminus and escape. Along the way, they reunite with baby Judith, who was saved by Tyrese. The reunion begins Rick's slow journey back toward humanity, though he remains ruthlessly pragmatic about survival. After more losses, they meet Aaron, a recruiter for a community called Alexandria. Behind its walls is a preserved pocket of pre-apocalypse life, complete with electricity, running water, and people who've never faced the brutality of the outside world. In Alexandria, Rick struggles to adjust. The residents seem naive, unprepared for reality. Their leader, Deanna Monroe, asks Rick to serve as constable, which is a return to his pre-apocalypse role. But Rick can't go backward. He's seen too much, done too much. The civilized disguise of Alexandria cracks when Rick discovers Pete Anderson is abusing his wife Jessie and their children. The domestic violence triggers something in Rick, perhaps because it represents the kind of everyday evil that existed even before the apocalypse. saviors. When Deanna refuses to execute Pete, preferring exile, Rick nearly stages a coup. Only after Pete accidentally kills Deanna's husband in a drunken rage does she authorize Rick to execute him, which he does without hesitation, just as his old friend Morgan Jones arrives to witness the execution. The contrast between Morgan's newfound pacifism and Rick's ruthless pragmatism perfectly illustrates how far Rick has traveled from the man who once apologized to a walker. From that moment on, Rick unofficially leads Alexandria, beginning its transformation into a hardened, sustainable community. Part 5. The Saviors and Negan. A massive herd of walkers converges on Alexandria, testing the community's defenses and resolve. During this crisis, something important happens. The original Alexandrians begin to fight effectively alongside Rick's group. The collective defense demonstrates to Rick that these people can adapt and learn to survive. As Alexandria stabilizes, Rick begins a relationship with Michonne, finding some measure of peace and normalcy. This period represents a balance Rick rarely achieves. He's still the hardened survivor, but also someone capable of connection and hope. The equilibrium shatters when they learn of the Saviors, which is a group that demands half of other communities' supplies in exchange for protection. After meeting survivors from the Hilltop colony who've been subjugated by the Saviors, Rick proposes a preemptive strike. The decision marks another evolution in Rick's moral calculus. He's now willing to initiate violence to prevent future threats. After several successful raids on Savior outposts, Rick's group is ambushed on a dark road. Lined up on their knees, they meet Negan, the charismatic, sadistic leader of the Saviors. To punish Rick's group for killing his men, Negan brutally murders Abraham and Glenn with a barbed wire-wrapped baseball bat he calls Lucille. Negan's psychological torture of Rick is meticulous. He nearly forces Rick to cut off Carl's arm before stopping him at the last second. The message is clear. Rick is not in control anymore. The breaking of Rick Grimes is complete. He submits to Negan, agreeing to provide supplies for the Saviors. For weeks, Rick endures humiliation, convinced that resistance means death for more of his people. But Alexandria isn't broken. Carl, Michonne, Rosita, and others urge Rick to fight back. When he learns Negan will kill people regardless of compliance, Rick finally agrees to resist. Rick forges alliances with the Hilltop, the Kingdom, and eventually the Scavengers, though they later betray him. The communities rise up against the Saviors in a coordinated assault. What follows is all-out war. There are victories and defeats on both sides. Alexandria is bombed. The Kingdom falls. Both sides suffer heavy casualties. Most devastatingly, Carl is bitten by a walker while helping a stranger. Before taking his own life, Carl writes letters urging his father to find peace and build a better world. The war culminates in a final battle where Rick slashes Negan's throat, but then, in a shocking move, orders him saved. Over everyone's objections, especially Maggie's, Rick imprisons Negan rather than executing him. He declares, "My mercy prevails over my wrath," honoring Carl's dying wish for a better world. This stance, perhaps the most controversial of Rick's leadership, represents his attempt to break the cycle of violence while still maintaining justice. It's not forgiveness, it's strategic mercy. By keeping Negan alive but imprisoned, Rick demonstrates that civilization can exist without abandoning all moral principles. Would you have killed Negan or shown mercy like Rick did? That decision reveals everything about your own survival philosophy. Please let me know your choice in the comments. Part 6. A New Beginning and the End. 18 months after defeating Negan, Rick works to build the world Carl envisioned. The communities trade with each other. They're rebuilding infrastructure, including a bridge to connect them. Rick regularly visits Negan in his cell, updating him on the progress, showing him that cooperation works better than tyranny. But tensions remain. Maggie still wants Negan dead. Some Saviors refuse to integrate. Daryl questions Rick's leadership. When Anne disappears after being connected to mysterious helicopter sightings, Rick faces growing dissent. During construction on the bridge, a herd of walkers approaches. Rick rides ahead to lead them away from the workers. His white horse, spooked by the walkers, throws him, and Rick is impaled on a rebar spike protruding from a concrete block. Delirious and bleeding, Rick pulls himself free and stumbles forward. He experiences hallucinations of people from his past, Shane, Herschel, and Sasha, each representing different aspects of his journey. These visions aren't just dramatic devices. They represent Rick confronting his own legacy as he believes he's dying. Barely conscious, Rick leads the walkers away from his people toward the bridge, which in my opinion is the physical manifestation of his vision for the future. With the herd crossing and his people watching helplessly from both sides, Rick makes a fateful choice. He shoots at dynamite on the bridge, destroying it, the walkers, and seemingly himself in the explosion. But Rick survives, washed downriver and barely conscious. Anne finds him on the riverbank and signals a mysterious helicopter she's been communicating with. She boards with Rick, telling them, "I have a bee," and they fly away to parts unknown. To everyone who knew him, Rick Grimes died on that bridge, sacrificing himself for the communities he helped build. For 6 years, they believed he was gone, honoring his memory by continuing his work. Michonne gave birth to their son, RJ, and raised him alongside Judith, telling them stories of their heroic father. But as we now know, Rick lives. Whatever happened after that helicopter flight remains a mystery that will be explored in the upcoming Rick Grimes films. What we do know is that the CRM, the Civil Republic Military, the organization that took him, is vast, powerful, and ruthless. Rick Grimes' legacy. The transformation from the sheriff's deputy who apologized to a walker in episode 1 to the man who ripped out another human's throat with his teeth is staggering. Yet through it all, Rick never loses his essential core, the drive to protect those he loves. Every brutal act, every compromise of his morality was in service to his family and his community. Unlike many characters who become villains through trauma, Rick became harder, but never cruel for cruelty's sake. He killed, but never murdered. He fought, but never for pleasure. He led, but never for power. His legacy lives on in the communities he helped build and unite. In Judith, who carries his determination and compassion. In Michonne, who continues his search for connection in a broken world. In Daryl, who learned from Rick that family is what you make it. The story of Rick Grimes is the story of The Walking Dead itself, an exploration of what happens when civilization falls away and we're forced to rebuild from nothing. If it's hit you as hard as it hit me, hit the subscribe button now. Our channel breaks down these complex character arcs that keep us coming back season after season.